The following news flash is brought to you by the Lone Star Lowdown, providing your daily bulletins for the commodities market. Today in history, news updates, and the inside scoop into the tides of the alternative. Markets for Wednesday, March 9th, 2016 are currently trading with gold at $1,252.65 an ounce, silver $15.29 an ounce, Texas crude $36.50 a barrel, and Bitcoin is currently sitting at about 411 U.S. currency. Today in history, the year 1961, the first animal safely returned from space after completing one full orbit around the Earth in Sputnik 9. A doggy named Chernushka, or Blackie, returned from the heavens. Today in history. In recent news, Tayrod Pugh, a U.S. Air Force veteran, was found guilty today of attempting to join the Islamic State. After a week-long trial at a Brooklyn federal court, a jury found Tayrod guilty of attempting to provide material support to ISIS and guilty of obstruction for destroying 4 e-storage drives after his detention in Turkey. Pugh is set to be sentenced in September. Pugh's defense lawyer is arguing that all he did was express repugnant views about the Islamic State on Facebook and watch dozens of the group's recruitment videos, and that he was only traveling to Turkey to find work, not to become a jihadist. However, prosecutors are presenting a letter he apparently drafted to his Egyptian wife, which was found on his laptop, in which he vowed to fight for Islam. When detained in Istanbul, he apparently had a black face mask, a map depicting Islamic State's strongholds in Syria, and a chart of the border crossings between Turkey and Syria. Pugh served as an avionics specialist in the Air Force from 1986 to 1990, and later worked as an Army contractor in Iraq from 2009 to 2010. Toyota recently showed off a new device that could dramatically assist the visually impaired to better navigate their surroundings. Called Project Blade, an informational device to bridge the gap between a cane or a guide dog, Toyota has been testing various prototypes of the wearable device with individuals from the visually impaired community for the past 3 years, and though the details of the project were released this week, no official timeline has been set for the release. The automaker plans incorporating mapping, object identification, and facial mapping technologies into Blade in the future. Doug Moore, manager of partner robotics at Toyota, told ABC that Toyota is thinking about quality of life for individuals and how to impact society. The Lone Star Lowdown is currently looking to fill some ad space. If you have a product or a service you'd like to advertise with us, feel free to give me a call at 210-363-2257. This is Rick Rohde with your Lowdown for March 9th, 2016.
Good afternoon, Austin, Texas, and all of our listeners worldwide. This is Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior. It is Saturday. It is 2 o'clock here in good old Austin, Texas. I believe, is it noon in good old Las Vegas, Elisa?
It is. It's noon, and it's bright and sunny outside and warm.
Beautiful. It is quite bright and sunny here, too. I actually had an MMA practice here with the UT MMA club, and the doors were locked, so we actually just went outside on the turf field, and we were actually practicing outside for a couple hours, and it was just absolutely beautiful. The sun was shining, and it even got to the point it got so warm, we had to put our socks and shoes back on because the turf was getting so warm. So,
wow, that's amazing.
Absolutely, and it was it's definitely quite exciting here in Austin, Texas. South by Southwest is going on. all the people came out to see good old President Obama and all the misinformation that was being provided to everyone yesterday.
Oh, goodness.
So I was absolutely glad that I was able to avoid that. Just stayed at home, did some schoolwork and some training and everything. So that was a good thing. How's everything going in Las Vegas? I know you're studying for your test, Elisa. How's all that going?
Oh, yes. Very exciting stuff. I am taking my national licensing exam, which I should have probably done 10 years ago when I took my California and my Nevada license, but I put it off. So now I'm reviewing all of my information, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's always good to review your basics and brush up on some things. You know, it's interesting. When I was first in Chinese medical school, they taught a certain way, and years later, because I ended up teaching as a professor at Wanggu University, I ended up teaching Chinese medical students, first and second year students, and the information is actually a lot more complex. They ended up adding more material to the learning, which is great.
Oh, wow.
You know, yeah, the book is twice as thick as it was when I was in school, so I actually had to read brand new material to me and then teach it. This was a couple of years ago. Not necessarily brand new, but just more in depth about Chinese medicine. And overall, you know, I have to say it's a great experience to always continue learning because there's just so much to know. So I think I'll always be a student in some regard. And probably also always a teacher.
Oh, absolutely. I think we're all students and teachers throughout our lives. That's really the only true occupation, I believe, as Dave likes to say. So
yeah, indeed. So it's always fun to learn new things and then teach and continue, you know, and that's how we all evolve, I feel. Learn, teach.
So out of all this new information that you're reading and studying, how much of it do you think you will actually practically use in the clinic with the patients? I mean, just be honest now, like what percentage of this actual school textbook learning are you going to use versus, you know, maybe things that you've studied or learned from separate private seminars or, you know, just learned through experience?
I'll probably use 10%.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm actually studying biomedicine, Western medicine, and some of it is useful in that I'm going to have patients walking in and they have this particular blood test and they're bringing me the results. And so I'll be able to, you know, refamiliarize myself with the blood tests and the drugs, for instance, the pharmaceutical drugs. I'm learning all of the drugs again. And you forget this stuff because I don't like to think about pharmaceutical drugs. I personally almost never use them. And, but patients come in and they're taking certain drugs. And so it's good to know what the side effects are and what the effect of the drug is for. And it's good to know about the specific diseases. So some of it is good just so that I can come from an understanding of where they're coming from and then be able to use my medicine, Chinese medicine, to be able to treat, knowing how it corresponds with the biomedicine. So it's good. You know, my mother's a pharmacist actually, and I had a couple questions about certain drugs. So I was able to call her up and say, okay, what's the difference between, you know, benzodiazepines and SSRIs? And so, you know, these types of things are good to know. SSRIs, of course, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which of course, as we all know, one of the side effects is actually that it makes you more psychotic, and rather, bipolar in a way. It can have the adverse effect of what it's actually supposed to help with.
I know that there's also seems to be a pattern with many of these school shootings and people on SSRIs that they tend to keep out of the media a lot of the time. So it's quite interesting if, you know, what the relationship is there.
Yes, I've heard that too, that a lot of these people that have, you know, gone out and committed these crimes, that it's a possibility that they were on SSRIs, meaning Prozac or Zoloft. I think Zoloft is one of them. Yeah. And it can be dangerous if they're not really well looked after by their doctor who's prescribing the drug. Because from my studies, one of the things that one of the professors was saying is that when people first start taking the SSRIs, they feel so depressed. And I know actually someone who this happened to, they feel so depressed in the beginning. And they don't have enough energy to actually commit suicide. But then about 2 weeks into taking this SSRI, they're not quite, the drug hasn't quite kicked into where they're feeling happy or feeling good, but they have enough energy to actually follow through with committing suicide. And so this is something that doctors need to look out for, apparently, is what I've been told. So it's a little bit scary. Always suicide is, and people who are suicidal have to be, you have to be careful no matter what. But when they start taking these drugs, they are supposed to be monitored, especially in the first 2 weeks, before the drug is completely kicked in.
That makes sense for sure. It seems like there's definitely a better way, maybe through nature, that this could be handled, I would imagine, where getting a lot of these from, maybe just do some juicing, some vegetables, and positive people around you could be a better solution. Yeah,
my Prozac is Xiao San. It's a Chinese herbal formula to...
Oh, is that the happy pack? Is that what that is? Or?
There's that too. There's so many herbs. There's so many herbs that make you feel good. The Xiao San is basically it smooths out the liver energy, which in your body, the liver... is responsible for kind of maintaining your qi flow in the body. And when you get stressed out, it impacts your liver.
Okay.
And so when you can calm the liver, then it kind of just calms down your emotions and makes you feel easygoing. The actual formula is called Free and Easy Wanderer. It's an old Taoist.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's just supposed to make you feel free and easy, and you wander around and have no problems. And it's nice. It just kind of brings your body into a nice homeostasis. And there's so many ways to feel good besides taking drugs, in my opinion. There's so many amazing herbs and Chinese medicines and natural things you can do. Just getting outside, doing some yoga, getting some sunshine, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, yoga in the sunshine.
Yeah. Yeah. But even there can be a physiological balance, and it's really easy to correct that through herbs and proper diet.
Cool. The other thing that I know I absolutely love is the ginseng too.
Oh, yeah.
So that ginseng is just incredible. Anytime I'm like, oh man, I don't want to do this assignment, I don't want to get this work done or do this. Yeah. It's like, they're like, wait a second, there's ginseng. And then you take the ginseng and you're like, let's go. And suddenly everything's all happy and all the colors are dancing. I feel like I'm in, what's that one movie? Who Framed Roger Rabbit, when they come in and suddenly everything starts dancing and the sky's all happy. And this is just a basic ginseng formula. So, I could just imagine what else is out there. Some of the more expensive ones.
Yeah. I mean, it's just about, knowing the kind of herbs and foods and combinations and even vitamins and minerals that work. And we've talked about this before, but medical doctors, it's not really in their tool bag. They don't study that aspect of health. They have very little nutritional schooling. So, they don't learn about herbs. So it's not in their tool bag. So of course they're going to give you what they can, which is medicines. And it's not always in my opinion, it's definitely a last resort type of thing. You want to try more natural approach first.
Oh, I definitely agree. And it's funny too, you said that 10%. And I actually, I'm kind of realizing that as I'm doing, a master's at UT in kinesiology and then also a master's at Concordia for sports management. And that 10% number actually seems to be pretty accurate as far as, 10% of the stuff is okay, cool, this is interesting. And then there's a lot of the stuff, and even going back to when I was really younger, maybe only 10% of the stuff actually gets used. The other stuff, you're memorizing it for a day for a test, but so much stuff that I use and just do and experience on a daily basis came from actual experience, having a really good teacher teach me how to do it, or someone explaining this, or me going to the classroom learning stuff and then experimenting on my own. I don't think anything can beat experience. And there's just not enough of that, where everyone in classrooms nowadays likes to intellectualize stuff and go home and do homework and this. And there's just not enough, interactive and experiential things being done in school, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I, even as a practitioner, as much as I've studied and learned in school, the actual getting out there experience of treating patients and talking with people and trying different things has taught me so much more than staring at a textbook, because it doesn't even become real until you actually have a real person that you're treating. And then all of a sudden it becomes way more interesting, and you tend to remember the information because it has a meaning to it, and you learn from experience. I agree with you.
Absolutely.
The best way to do things is to just experience it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're coming up on our first break here. In the studio, we have Corey from Poker in Texas, so it'll be great to talk with him. And we'll have Dave and Andrew calling in from Australia here on Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior. Stay tuned.
This is the Logos Radio Network.
follow the immortal path, meditate on the formless form, student of the art of war, slayer of the mode of ignorance. I follow the immortal path, meditate on the formless form, student of the healing way. The Dharma wheel is spinning, the golden age is rising, the Dharma wheel is spinning.
My death is my beginning, in my beginning is my death. The circle of life is never ending, each life journey on intention depending. Cultivate yourself and accept.
Hello, everyone. This is Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior. An amazing day here in Austin, Texas. This is Ryan Metzel. We have Dr. Lisa Wampel in Las Vegas. And on the line now, we have our friends in good old Australia. It's early in the morning, but how are you guys doing, Andrew and Dave?
Doing very well. It's March 13th here in Australia. It's Sunday morning. Just been enjoying Sydney. The serenity of the beach seems to be pretty consistent from day to day, so that's cool.
Yeah, we went and toured the Star Casino, that's Sydney's casino, not last night, but the night before, and took a tour. They have the Australian tournament series going, where there is some smaller to mid-sized buy-in poker tournaments going, and they've got a pretty apparent packed-out list of cash games going, a bit of action going on.
Yeah, my friend told me that while the tournament was ongoing the other day, the cash games were so full that they all had wait lists. So it's a pretty good situation.
Yeah, we went and played for a little bit. Had nothing really too interesting going on, but there was a 5-10 going, and Andrew and I got some seats after waiting for. Andrew got seats for I had to wait for like an hour.
Yeah,
and but the table broke not too long after playing, so pretty much had to call it a night for the live games. They have their mini high roller today at noon.
Yeah, they have a $1,000 six max event, so might go down there and check it out. Might take a nap, kind of up in the air, but it's good to have options. You guys gonna try to
possibly play it, or are you guys just observing?
Yeah, it's definitely
okay. Just see how it goes. Whatever the universe decides.
Right, but I wanted to introduce our guest and have him speak a little bit about the topic he's very knowledgeable and passionate on. And his name's Corey, and he works with a group called Poker in Texas, or Legalized Poker in Texas. Is that right, Corey?
It's Poker in Texas. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's anything you'd like to share off the bat about just the broad strokes vision that you guys have, maybe we can share that first, and then we can share with the listeners kind of the history of, I guess, online poker in the U.S., and we can go into more detail after that.
Absolutely. The broad strokes of what we're trying to do is introduce legislation to the Texas legislature for legalizing for-profit poker in Texas. Most games, so long as it's just a few friends hanging around, there's not a problem. But if you want to go somewhere, say a card room, anywhere within the state, unless a very specific set of circumstances have been met to the point where it really is detrimental to the play and the environment of the game, it's an illegal enterprise in Texas. We're trying to introduce legislation that will, number one, recognize that poker is a game of skill. Number two, legalize for-profit poker rooms, physical poker in the state. And number three, legalize online poker so that you don't have to go to a physical environment if you want to play online. We're doing this through a series of 4 different legislative bills that we're trying to get introduced. One is a resolution indicating the skill. Second is strictly dealing with the brick and mortar or physical game. A third deals strictly with the online game. And then we've got a fourth bill that combines the 2 games into one piece of legislation.
Wow, that's truly amazing. It's a great vision, and it's nice to have different options and approaches as to how it may come to manifest in our lives.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that, from my perspective, being more of a libertarian liking the free market, I'm like, well, that's obvious. Like, why does anyone, need to do that? So I guess, Corey, what are the biggest obstacles you're up against with getting that done? Like, what arguments are the opposition? I can't think of anything, but, what are you coming up against?
One of the most popular opposition arguments that we've encountered is, I don't play poker. It doesn't affect me. Well, in fact, it does affect people who don't play. In 2014 alone, there were 4 cash games throughout the state hijacked that resulted in armed robbery, 3 separate deaths. Because you can't have a secure environment to play in. Everything has to be done off the books. Everything has to be done under the table. You can't have armed security there. And people at large stake events are going to talk to people. And 3 or 4 of these games were actually robbed. Down in Houston, there was about $10,000 or $20,000 on the table, and 4 masked men came in and shot a businessman cold dead before he could even stand up. To my knowledge, the criminals are still at large, but the bigger issue is it is a dangerous situation if you actually want to play poker, such as you can do in Oklahoma, in Louisiana, in Las Vegas, in Australia, in New Jersey, in California, where you can just go to a business, sit down, either enjoy yourself or practice your trade. All of that is illegal in the state if the business or the place offering the game has anything resembling a financial benefit from the game.
So a question, Corey, that I have for you is, we know that poker, especially Texas Hold'em poker, is maybe one of the most popular international games that is played in the world right now. And the amount of revenue that it could bring into the state of Texas, and the amount of prestige of being, in a sense, a pilgrimage for players of this game around the world to come and see where it was started. Why and how did poker even become illegal in Texas? It seems like it would have just been grandfathered in, like people ability to open carry.
Well, you've got a couple different questions there. Number one, the revenue, the additional jobs, the economic benefit is one of the major points that we are making with the legislatures when we get the opportunity to sit down with them. And we are having elected lawmakers and candidates schedule meetings with us on almost a weekly basis. We're sitting down with a new senator, a new representative, a new candidate almost every week. And we're making these arguments, and we're making them from a purely freedom, individual choice, and economic benefit point of view. So, and they've been very receptive to the discussions we've had. We've actually had a couple people that are very interested in seeing the final draft of the version, and most likely going to introduce at least 2, if not all 4 of the bills that we are introducing. And we're not even into the full election season yet. So those results have been very positive. As far as how did it become illegal, that actually dates back to historical, more along the lines of the Reconstruction after the Civil War. One of the things being in the Confederacy, when the federal people came down to rewrite the Texas Constitution.
And we're coming up to our break right here. So after the break, we'll get more into how poker became illegal in Texas and what you can do to help out making it legal again.
Fly me to the moon and let me play among the stars. Oh, yeah. Out-of-this-world vacations may soon become a reality, and space entrepreneurs are taking reservations. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll tell you more in just a moment.
Your search engine is watching you, recording all your searches and creating a massive database of your personal information. That's creepy. But it doesn't have to be that way. Startpage.com is the world's most private search engine. Startpage doesn't store your IP address, make a record of your searches, or use tracking cookies, and they're third-party certified. If you don't like Big Brother spying on you, start over with Startpage. Great search results and total privacy. Startpage.com, the world's most private search engine.
Would you like to spend your next vacation in space? That day may be coming. 8 private spaceship airports or spaceports have already been built, and test flights are underway. Companies like Space Adventures and Virgin Galactic are pre-selling seats for space cruises designed for the regular public. Forget the $40 million price tag the Russians have been asking for rides to the space station. Suborbital cruises start at just $102,000. Take out a second mortgage, and you could be on your way. Promoters expect that space travel will eventually become routine, and prices should drop even further. Me? I love adventure, and I love a bargain. I'll send you a postcard from space. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
You're listening to the Logos Radio Network at logosradionetwork.com.
Hello, everybody. This is Andrew Lucky Chewy Lichtenberger. I'm in Sydney, Australia, alongside David Burke. We're connected through the biosphere to our friends Elisa Wampole and Ryan Muetzel. And our guest today is Corey, who works with Poker in Texas. And just before the break, he was explaining to us how Texas Hold'em, the possibly most popular form of poker played internationally, became illegal in Texas. So please do finish sharing that, Corey.
As we were saying before the break, after the Civil War, the Constitution of all of the Confederate States had to be rewritten. Texas and the legislatures that were still here were of the opinion that instead of giving a vague constitution that could be open to interpretation and allowed for a lot of statutory interpretation, they wrote down a constitution that was so intensive and covered every aspect of what was then modern life that it didn't really allow for legislative activity to happen outside of the Constitution. So the way the Constitution was structured immediately after the Civil War made everything have to be a constitutional amendment for almost any law that changes within the state. And about 50 years after that, as the Old West was dying out, at the same time of around Prohibition, everyone there was a huge moral uprising throughout the country. At that time, a law was passed in Texas that prohibited gambling, and the economic benefit of anyone not actively involved in a game of chance or skill was then deemed criminal. And this has been around since, I believe, the 20s or 30s. I don't have the exact date off the top of my head, but back when poker was more of a, saloon and riverboat craft as opposed to an open and visible, transparent economic way to provide entertainment, in your case, Andrew, to provide a living and to have the skill to do that. It wasn't recognized on a public, large-scale public forum. So, and in the 20s, it just became a game of chance, is what was described, and the law hasn't been changed in nearly a century. Back in the 90s, there was a constitutional amendment in Texas passed to allow bingo and lottery for charity events and the state lottery, obviously. And those are the biggest changes to the gaming laws of Texas in almost a century.
Seems like we need to set up a home game just for fun, of course, with some politicians and play them and have them see for themselves whether or not it's a game of skill or a game of luck.
I couldn't agree more with you, and I've got a few in mind that would be eager to sit at the table with you.
Really? Wow. Well, I guess when I come back to Austin, we'll have to have a game together.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. I wasn't at all aware of that. And I just wanted to share with our listeners kind of the more recent, I guess, history surrounding the poker industry and the online landscape. And please do feel free to interject or add more after I finish, because I'm sure you're a little more well-read on the topic. But I just know in 2008, I believe it was, or maybe it was even earlier, maybe like 2006, the Unlawful Internet Gaming and Entertainment Act was moved through, which I believe was somewhat of a reinstatement of the Wire Act, or made it more applicable to poker at the time. And one of the major operators, which was in the U.S. market at that time, which was Party Poker, actually pulled out. And from there, there were two kind of industry leaders, I guess, which at the time were not nearly as large of providers as Party Poker. They were Poker Stars and Full Tilt Poker. And for the next several years, they kind of dominated the U.S. market. And then it was in 2011, on April 15th, that the Department of Justice indicted, I guess, the owners of both those sites, and they were no longer allowed entry into the U.S. market, and the players were forced to cash out their funds, and that was that. And then since then, I guess Nevada, Delaware, and there's a third state which has allowed for an in-state license of regulated online poker to be allowed. And is it New Jersey, I think? Because I know at any point...
I feel like it was New Jersey.
New Jersey currently, Michigan and Pennsylvania currently have it in the final phases of their legislative process. And California just had a similar bill come out of committee.
Okay. So, I mean, that's definitely an improvement. But the thing about how poker was, and I just know because I was playing during the time when it was offered internationally, is that it is so much an international game. The larger the player pool, kind of the more enjoyable it is. And something that's truly amazing about it is you get to meet and interact with people from all walks of life and all different cultures. And every summer in Las Vegas at the World Series of Poker, people are traveling from all over the world. And, to start with a smaller, I guess, area and have it regulated and allow for those players to play is great. I mean, it's definitely a better, it's an improvement from not being allowed any online poker. But, it is a beautiful thing when people are playing with one another all across the world.
Oh, I have to agree. Some of the most interesting people I've ever met have been across the felt on a poker table. If you sit down and listen to the stories of what they've done in their life, it's absolutely amazing, and the perspective you can get from those type of interactions.
Yeah, and it's a very kind of laid-back atmosphere where, people don't feel threatened. It's a great place to hang out and chat. And yeah, it's just a beautiful way to experience strategy, experience mathematics, experience intuition. And yeah, to be able to meet people who have, been through whatever it is they've been through. And yeah, it's amazing.
I completely agree. And for any of the listeners who want to know how they can get involved and how they can help, we welcome you to check out our website, which is PokerINTX. That's pokerinTexas.org. And we have a email sign-up list. We've got several topics on our Table Talk blog that outline these type of arguments for poker and what some of the issues that people have that we've encountered as far as opposition goes, and logical, respectful answers to those concerns.
So, Corey, another question on poker in Texas. Has there ever been in Texas a movement to try and have poker legalized in Texas before?
Yes. There have actually been several laws in the very most recent legislatures introduced. There was a law in the 2013 session that was to legalize the text of the law was actually for small limit games to even allow a rake on it, but it capped the buy-in at $100 per table per person. There was a series of legislation introduced in 2011 to actually allow for full Class 3 casino gaming. 2009, they tried a series of poker laws, and in 2007, they tried again for full Class 3 casino gaming. All of those, unfortunately, due to the leadership in the legislature at the time, never made it out of committee.
Excellent. We're coming up to our break here, so when we get back, more with Corey Nation and Poker in Texas here on Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior.
Descends to the earth, a time when the mind is defined and confined. We the people need to realign with the divine. A government for the people, by the people realigns. No more taxation without representation. It's time for the people to have their say. No longer the prey. Aligned with truth, there's nothing we cannot do. Divide and conquer lies and false promises. These are the archonic weapons of hurtful decay. The abundance of the earth is the perfect technology, and the golden age is now. Rise together as one.
Hello and welcome back to the show. We are talking about legality issues of poker in Texas currently. And I had a question for Corey. because I'm not a poker player and I maybe don't know as much as some people about poker, but what exactly is the law in Texas? Are you allowed to play a home game amongst your friends? Is that legal?
Well, yes, it is actually legal. You can sit down with 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 25 of your closest friends, have a home game, buy in for whatever you want, so long as, number one, the house doesn't take a rake, doesn't take a tournament fee, or anything related to the game itself. Number two, so long as that no one takes any economic benefit from the folding cash basically in your pocket. This has actually been determined that if 5 friends are sitting around in your garage playing poker, you order a pizza from Domino's, so long as you do not pay with cash, it's legal. But the moment that each of you pull out a $5 bill and pay for the pizza, you've entered into a criminal enterprise. This specific case has actually been prosecuted, not once, but twice in Texas, successfully both times.
That's amazing.
And both of them are up in the panhandle of Texas. What happened is you had 5 guys sitting around in the garage, minding their own business, playing a little $50 buy-in game of poker. They got hungry and called Domino's. Mm-hmm. Each of the guys agreed to pull a $10 bill out of their wallet. Wasn't it on the chips on the table, but it was cash money in their wallet. They each pulled out a 10, tipped the driver, bought the pizza, found themselves each successfully prosecuted with a Class B misdemeanor, which is up to a $10,000 fine and up to 90 days in jail.
Wow.
Because they got hungry.
So if they're sitting around playing, no matter whatever money's in your pocket, that's part of the game. And
whether you've turned it into chips, whether you've put it on the table or not, folding cash money, at the way the current law has been read, folding cash money at the presence of a game is deemed to be in play.
I mean, do people know this? Because it seems like this could, I mean, if home games are legal by law, I mean, it'd be really easy to not know this strange little issue with paying cash money for a service or a food item or whatever. It sounds ridiculous.
The way the law is worded and it has been applied in the criminal cases that have been successfully prosecuted, most people in the state have no clue of the caveats of this.
Right.
And so did the people actually end up sitting inside a jail cell because they ordered a pizza and paid for it with a $10 bill?
They sat inside of a jail cell for 3 days, and average fine by the time it was said and done was about $500 a piece.
Wow.
But that was... the 3 days was because they got busted on a Friday night and the bail bondsmen weren't in town until Monday.
Of course not.
This is a small little town with a population of under 3,000 people.
Got to make money somehow.
Now, with having a record, I mean, would this affect their employment? Would this affect their ability to travel internationally?
It's a Class B misdemeanor, so it's not considered a felony. It's not considered a violent crime. Most of them, actually, their first call was to the wife. The wife called the employer, said they're going to be late on Monday. Travel internationally for a nonviolent misdemeanor, no, is not going to be an issue. However, if they were to get security sensitive jobs or law enforcement type jobs, it could become an issue.
Yeah, I have to put on my every year to get my renewal for my doctor's license, for instance. I have to say, whether or not I've been, had any misdemeanors or any of these things on my record. So it could be an issue for some people, I would imagine.
And with paying cash for a service, where's the line drawn? Like, say a couple of guys are playing, one guy goes and picks up food from a restaurant and he pays in cash. Is that still illegal?
That, so long as he's not taking money from anybody at the table. If he leaves, then that money is no longer at the table and in play. But if he took $5 from everybody at the table and then left, then they have violated the law. But if he leaves on his own to go get it and pays cash out of what he's got, the money in his pocket's not in play at the time.
Okay, so then same scenario as what happened with the Domino's incident. What if he had cash in another room in the house, which was not physically on anybody, and he paid for the pizza with that? Would that be legal?
Would be legal, yes, because it wasn't in the same immediate location as the game, therefore it was not deemed in play.
Okay, that's really interesting. So I guess what they're kind of implying is that table stakes, meaning that the money that you have in front of you in chips or cash or whatever, doesn't exist. And it's the type of thing where, you see it in old poker movies where it's like, I'll raise you my watch and I'll re-raise you my car type of thing. Seems sort of like they're implying that's what exists.
Funny you should mention that in the published opinion. That was actually a similar example. He was using a scene from a 1970s movie called The Cincinnati Kid.
Oh, yeah.
Where the players would routinely reach into their pocket or go to other players, can I borrow this, can I borrow that, thus insinuating that every dollar at the location was in play. And that was in the judge's ruling, who I suspect has never actually sat down for an actual hand in his life.
Yeah. Just for the listeners, it's an interesting concept. I'm sure it did happen at times, but it's somewhat archaic in the approach to poker because, well, it's just kind of difficult to get anyone new to play the game, or for that matter, anyone who's experienced. If, I don't know, they have to carefully determine what they wear, what kind of jewelry they have, what's in their pocket. Otherwise, they might lose it all.
Exactly.
And another recent example, I was Rounders was on TV the other day, and I was studying and had that on. And a lot of people might remember the scene where they're at the casino, where the Edward Norton character wants to play, and they're all sitting at the casino with the dealer, and he just takes the chips from the Matt Damon character and wants to play, and the dealer doesn't let him do that, saying, you need to buy the chips from me. And so these interesting rules about whether you can use your friend's money or like we were talking about your watch or your car, like what's up for grabs in a poker game. So I guess an interesting question for Corey: has that ever been ruled on from the perspective of people in a home game saying like, oh, I want to put you all in, and then saying, well, your money that was in your pocket is in play too? Has anyone ever used this knowledge of the law to their advantage in that way?
Most home games that I've been aware of and that I've had anecdotal stories about have all been, as Andrew referred to earlier, table stakes. Mm-hmm. Unless the money or the chips are on the table at the beginning of the hand, it's not considered in play unless there's an agreement in the middle of the hand. Say that Joe is playing and he's $100 short from everybody else. He wakes up with a monster. He's like, all right, guys, I want to put another $100 on the table. Everybody at the table has to agree to allow him to do that in the middle of the hand. In between the hand, table stakes are you can reload at any time. Mm-hmm. But once the cards have been dealt, what's on the table is what's on the table.
But does the law specifically state he can just reach into his pocket and pull out?
There hasn't been a specific ruling on that.
Interesting.
But most of the home games wouldn't allow it to happen mid-hand. But the courts, as most of us are aware, in a lot of situations are so far behind and so far misinformed as to what actually happens in the environments that they're trying to rule on that logic just goes out the window to whoever wrote the best script on the last movie they saw.
Corey, I have a question with Black Friday. Now, for our listeners who may not know, Black Friday happened on April 15th, 2011, and it was the day that the United States indicted and put together cases against the major poker online platforms and actually seized the websites and bank accounts of these poker providers. Before that time, we could actually play online poker. And Corey, during that time, could we play online poker in the state of Texas?
Well, could we physically? My wife and I would agree that it was possible to be done. Was it in accordance with Texas law? The then Attorney General of the state of Texas would disagree, saying that it was an illegal enterprise. And the current Attorney General, Dan Patrick, if his ruling on fantasy sports last week is any indication, would also agree that according to the current state of Texas law is illegal.
Okay, and just something that I find unusual. I mean, during the time where we had a Texas president, President Bush, no real moves are made against online poker. And then in 2011, during the Obama administration's time, the move was made to ban online poker. But now we have states like California, which are very democratic, wanting to have online poker for their land-based casinos.
Well, trying to assign a D or an R to this issue is really difficult to do because so many aspects of this issue fall on one side or another. There's not a straight down-the-line answer for that one. What really comes into, I believe, the answer you're looking for is how big and how much power is the judiciary and the Department of Justice trying to become and trying to execute over the lives of the everyday citizens. So trying to say that it's just a Democrat or Republican issue gets more into a 10th Amendment federal versus federalist issue. And that's one of the nuances of our very unique Constitution.
All right, everyone. We're coming up to our main break here at the hour. Stay tuned for Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior here on the Logos Radio Network.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is David Berg in Sydney, Australia with Andrew Lucky Chewy Lichtenberger. We've got Dr. Elisa Wampole in Las Vegas and Corey and Ryan in the office in Austin. Now, we're just going to get into a little bit about the economic impact that poker, Texas Hold'em, when it eventually is brought into Texas, because I really do feel it will once again be legal to play poker in Texas. Corey, what type of conservative estimates do you think once we get poker legalized back in Texas, it could have in the community?
Well, if we're talking about large-scale tournament events like a WPT or a World Series of Poker or even a Heartland Poker Tournament event, the large events brought into a metropolitan area could be easily $40 to $50 million a year for city of Austin, city of Houston, Dallas-Fort Worth area, those type of things. When you factor in the hotel revenue, the restaurant, the sales tax, plus the additional fees that happen from taxation on the actual gaming itself, it's very easy to see where this would make an enormous impact to the local economy of every city that it's brought to for these large events. If you're talking about just almost every city of size in the state, you've got to remember that a poker room requires a lot of people to operate. You've got to have at least one or two floor directors. You've got to have 4 to 8 security personnel. And for every table that you have in the room, you've got to have 3 to 4 dealers available to run so that you can operate on a 16 or 24-hour schedule, not to mention cashier personnel. And then you've got the associated jobs, linen service coming in and out, food service coming in and out, cleaning personnel, the people building the casinos, the maintenance crews. The economic impact of this just expands exponentially as you start to think down the rabbit hole. So realistically, on a conservative side, as to what Texas loses to Oklahoma, Louisiana, and even to some degree New Mexico, it's been estimated anywhere from $400 million to just over $1 billion a year leaves Texas annually for gaming revenue.
Wow.
Now, saying that poker alone is going to recuperate all of that, no. But poker is obviously one of the biggest draws that these casinos have, and the casinos that do not have a competitive poker room don't see near the draw of players.
Interesting. And that's what we had talked about on break a little bit too. I guess if you can just let everyone know what the biggest opposition right now, where the money is coming from. I think you mentioned some of these border casinos and all that, if that's what we're really up against here in Texas.
As far as the brick and mortar legalization of poker, Sheldon Adelson in Las Vegas could really care less about Texas. We're not a destination even on their radar for good reason. But the Chickasaw Nation, the Choctaw Nation, Harrah's International, and several of the other Louisiana enterprises do contribute heavily to a lot of the legislators on contested areas that have opponents that are running pro gaming and pro poker platforms.
I do believe, though, Sheldon Adelson has been a big contributor to ban online poker.
Oh, absolutely.
As much as possible. I do remember that from back in the day.
Oh, and just looking at the online poker, when it was seized by the Black Friday event, they said there's about $3 billion was seized. Now, Corey, what type of impact do you think if we were able to have international online poker based in Texas and having these as feeder events also for a brick and mortar World Series in Texas, what type of revenues do you think and economic impact having an online poker experience for people based out of Texas could have for the state of Texas?
Realistically, to have an online game that's regulated, taxed, and monitored in the state, if you were taxing only the percentage of the rake that a Texas player is at the table for, you're looking conservatively at $100 million or more every year brought into the state treasury to use however the legislators decide. It's not our job to determine where that needs to go. Our job is to try and give the citizens of Texas the opportunity to make their own choices.
Yeah, one thing when I was spending time in Austin, Texas, there's a real big push to get tech startups going and people with ideas that can, refine the tech industry and make technology more user-friendly in the community and give money to young technology startups. Now, one thing I've seen over in the UK is the online gaming really has provided jobs for tech people. It's created money for spin-offs for people to begin tech jobs where they're getting into computer programming, they're getting into computer design. For gaming, they're able to use money generated from the online poker and online gaming to get more creative people, get pay better wages in the tech industry and hold on to these great little tech companies and grow them. Is that something, Corey, you think we could maybe do in Austin, Texas, to use some of this money to make Austin, Texas and Texas in general a competitor for Silicon Valley?
I think the advent of internet poker would absolutely create those type of openings and those type of opportunities, because you're going to have servers, maintenance, software, and reporting capabilities for these enterprises, and they have to be based within the state so that they are subject to the jurisdiction of Texas law. So these people are going to have to be employed. They're going to have to be employed within the state, and that's a skill set that can only drive the opportunities in the market upwards.
Yeah, right now we did a tour in India, Andrew and I, and right now you see the big tech companies over there. You've got, Microsoft, you've got Dell, but also, interesting enough, you've got Party Poker, you've got PokerStars. All these big tech giants in the online poker industry are providing, numerous jobs over in India for tech professionals. And it's such an incredible opportunity for Texas to do the same thing, providing jobs for people in technology in Texas and, compete in wages that are right now. You're seeing all the top technology people headhunted to go to San Francisco, to Silicon Valley, to go overseas to London. It'd be a great way to hold on to some of these great people that are growing up in the state of Texas.
I couldn't agree more with you. As a matter of fact, not only would the legalization of poker give this enormous opportunity and area for top tech professionals, programmers, developers, auditors, and whatnot, it would even help on the low end. You don't necessarily need a programming or tech degree to become a dealer, but a top dealer, Andrew, you probably know this better than I do. Have you ever played at a game where the dealer wasn't getting at least $1 to $5 a hand that was dealt? Now, granted, it may start off as a minimum wage job, but when you factor in tips at 30 hands an hour, who's not going to be lining up for a $30 to $40 an hour job?
True, and inevitably someone's winning in the game, and whoever's winning tends to be a little bit more generous with their tipping.
And it's really interesting. There's a South by Southwest going on here now in Austin, Corey, and we're talking about billions of dollars. We're talking about some of the direct money from these poker sites that could be made, some money from possible casinos and home games. I'm also thinking about a lot of the indirect money too that could stay here. I know Dave and Andrew are there in Australia now instead of being here in the U.S. Probably going out to Juices, getting their raw vegan foods. So instead of this money going to a Juice Land or a Wheatsville or a Whole Foods, it's going to Australia. So do you know of any tech companies, Corey, here at South by that are trying to do something with poker? I would think someone should be doing that if they're not.
To my knowledge, no, but I'm with you on the thought process that this offers such an enormous opportunity for a company willing to develop the platform and develop the regulation compatible software to make the state able to verify what would be in the laws through the online portals, that someone should at least be having it, for lack of a better word, in a skunkworks type development, ready to roll out when this legislation comes out of committee before it even hits a vote, so that the lawmakers know that this is something that can hit the ground running.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a really great point, and Corey, and we'll definitely put a reach out to some of the tech developers we know, because even if just the beta testing platforms could be shared with the committees, and they could see how safe that is and how player friendly it is. And I know, Andrew, when we were in DC, we met. He was the John Hopkins professor of computer science, and
his name's Avi Rubin, and he spoke a bit about the security of online poker and how it's actually not, in his opinion, difficult to make it more secure than online banking and other secure online transactions.
And he also testified this to, I believe it was a hearing in DC, where they'll bring up the reasons why to ban online poker and online gaming. And he was, it can't be a security issue, because the security that we can put in place for online is the same type of level of security we use from banking to drones to military hardware, all these type of things.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It is very easy with today's technology and the willingness of the service providers like Party Poker and PokerStars and some of the others to provide a secure environment, because it's in their best economic interest to have that. they're more than willing to put that in place because they want to have a reputable place. If they've got a reputation for people getting their money stolen or a crooked game, their business model goes into the toilet very quickly.
Yeah, and when you actually go for licensing in different countries for online, like, for example, the UK, you actually have to have your technology, your random number generator, your shuffle codes, your whole entire code platform tested by a third-party government regulator who goes through every piece of code and checks that everything is working absolutely perfectly. So the game is completely legitimate. And there are more jobs that are going overseas. More jobs are people with tech skills that are of a government grade level for testing. You're having to go overseas to get that if you're a developer of these type of platforms.
Oh, I agree completely.
Alrighty, going to our break here. When we come back, more with Corey Nation from Poker in Texas.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Hello, everybody. We are back. We are chatting with Corey about poker legalization, specifically in Texas. And, would you like to finish, or what were we talking about before the break specifically? Was there any thought that you'd like to finish, Corey?
Actually, we were speaking about the impact of the economic impact of tech and high-end security jobs for online poker legalization and the impact it would have in the Austin and in the general state of Texas versus what's happening overseas versus Great Britain and India and a few of the other places where it is currently legal. We didn't have anything specific that was unfinished from the last segment.
I had a question going back to the reasons why people don't want poker, because obviously we see there's a huge economic incentive to having it. And then there's, of course, the people that are making money from the Texans crossing the border, going to to gamble at their casinos or their establishments. So these establishments, let's say they support the no keep poker illegal in Texas laws. What's the other reason? What are the other reasons why people say, oh no, we don't want to have poker here? I was looking on your website and I see a little list here. The first one being, no, I don't play poker. It doesn't affect me. But then I see, other people say, oh, gambling is a sin. Gambling will increase crime. It will invite an undesirable element to our community. What does your organization say to combat these kind of statements that are not necessarily true?
Well, as far as gambling is a sin, I am not one that can, with any semblance of authority, tell you what is and is not a sin between you and your God.
Yeah.
That is not honest. For the Texas legislature to determine. That is definitely not for me. If you yourself feel that this is a sin, all I can say is the law that we're proposing does not force you to enter that business.
Yeah, it's almost like a control kind of mechanism, just because obviously they're not sinning if they're not going to be playing, but we have to control everyone else and protect everyone else from themselves. So that doesn't seem like a very solid argument in the grand scheme of things.
Right. That's the point that we're trying to make, is that, okay, you deem it in your relationship with your God to be a sin. That doesn't mean that your next door neighbor has the same view or has the same interpretation in their relationship with their God. And I'm not going to tell you who's right or who's wrong. I am going to say it's not the point of the Texas legislature to determine who is or is not right in that relationship. As far as the inviting undesirable elements, if you look at the areas that have legalized poker, Indiana, Michigan, even North Carolina.
I think Ohio too.
Ohio
also.
Also.
Room now at the arena right there, by where the Cavs play.
That was one of the biggest arguments against bringing poker into each and every one of those states. And unanimously, the sheriffs in the counties where they have had this come in have noticed a decrease in the violent crimes and the crimes associated with gambling and with gaming, because all of a sudden everything's out, everything's in the open, everything is above board, and you're no longer afraid to call the police to help if something goes wrong.
Aha, that makes sense.
Yeah, and
There's less
having
security.
on hand where the game's going on, like, for the most part, I would say poker players are pretty relaxed and enjoyable people to be around. But every now and again, if someone drinks too much or what have you, they might get a little out of hand. It happens sometimes in Vegas. And, inviting that element into a home game where there's no one to...
No security.
Yeah, exactly. It's...
Or Andrew, even worse than a home game, inviting that element into an off-site establishment that has no neighbors, or you're taking over an old body shop, you're taking over an old retail outlet that has no neighbors around it, that it's not suspicious to see cars around, and all of a sudden you've got no one around other than the players at the table to help you with a belligerent, intoxicated player or someone kicking in the door saying it's time.
Yeah, I must say at the Bellagio, when we play there in Las Vegas, the security and staff do an incredible job with anyone who is belligerent, or even if there's a debate at the table on whether the person, the players are following the rules correctly, and someone thinks, okay, there's a string bet, there wasn't a string bet, the person called, etc. Having a manager and having the laws to be able to be make it safe for all the players and for a level of respect for everyone at the table and for the staff and for the experience, it really makes the game and the experience of playing poker a lot more enjoyable.
It's amazing I agree, because it's amazing how having a set of rules and someone who is not involved in the outcome of the game apply those rules makes the experience and everybody involved in the game, tournament, or whatever considerably more relaxed, as you were alluding to, Andrew and Dave.
Yeah, that's absolutely true in my experience. The floor staff in the Bellagio do a great job of keeping it safe and just maintaining an enjoyable atmosphere. And as you pointed out earlier, Corey, there's no reason that they shouldn't do that. It's going to reflect poorly on their business if they don't. And they're primarily relying on tourism. So any negative press that gets out with them not respecting the confines of the game and what's okay for participants to do during the game, it's just going to discourage people from coming and staying at the Bellagio and encourage them to stay somewhere down the street.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and one thing I have seen with the casinos and gaming is Alderson's group was very smart. The Venetian. I spoke to a gentleman at a community event who, when Alderson first got started with the Venetian in his plan, he said, we're going to build one of the greatest convention centers the world's ever seen. And same as in Macau, the Venetian, they said the same thing. We're going to build one of the world's most impressive, largest convention centers the world's ever seen. And the Venetian has so many incredible conventions where, whether it's food, beverage, clothing, we have all the Texas bull riders come out and around Christmas, and they have a convention going on. And the casino part of it supports and allows income to be able to build something that large, that incredible, that can hold so many people. And I look at it, with Texas, we have some pretty good convention areas, but for us to be able to have the economic opportunity to build one of the world's largest, most modern and up-to-date convention centers that could bring in some of the greatest events from CES, Consumer Electronics Show, could bring in incredible manufacturing events. That'd be something really worth our time.
Everything's bigger in Texas, so they say. So I could only imagine what kind of facility could be built here that really could benefit everyone here in Texas.
Absolutely. We have a unique benefit among many of the states in the union in that we actually have undeveloped real estate in Texas. So
a lot of it, like most of the state,
the size that we could build a facility of that nature, but most of that that Addleston is building for the Venetian and for Macau is based upon full Class 3 gaming. That's not a position that Poker in Texas is advocating in favor of. However, we're not against it should it come to pass. But that's a different revenue stream to where the house, in this case, the Venetian, actually has a vested interest in the outcome of each individual hand, each individual pull, each individual roll, where that's not what we're talking about to the legislatures at this time. Another question that we've got that is one of the common things people ask is, well, I don't want to see a casino or a poker room across the street from my school or across the street from my church. The answer to that one's very simple. They don't want to be across the street from your school or across the street from your church. The amount of real estate needed for the parking lot and the building is to the degree that in a highly developed urban area, There's just not enough there to make it profitable.
That makes sense.
All right, more here after the break.
Do you have a chocolate monster inside? You know, the one that forces you to eat a chocolate bar even though it's not on your diet? I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll be back in a moment with a tip to tame temptation that really works.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This public service announcement is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
There's nothing quite like melt-in-your-mouth chocolate, but it can sure sabotage a healthy diet. When I get a hankering, I just recall the U.S. Food and Drug Administration guidelines for adulteration and filth in chocolate. You might think the agency would forbid filth and contamination, but they don't. They just set limits. For example, the FDA allows an average of 59 insect fragments and 1 rat hair in 100 grams of chocolate. To put that in perspective, 100 grams is about the weight of a 3.5-ounce sampler box with 8 chocolate candies. Yuck. Just think wings, legs, and hair the next time you're dieting. It works like a charm. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
Trails. Live Free Speech Radio, LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior. This is Ryan Metzel here in the studio with Corey Nation from Poker in Texas. We have Dr. Elisa Wampel in Las Vegas preparing diligently for her exam. So hopefully she'll be able to be treating patients here in Texas soon.
Yes.
And of course, other good friends and co-hosts, Dave and Andrew in Australia. So Elisa, you had some points you wanted to go over with Corey about the legalization of poker. So I guess let's go through some of those.
Yeah, I was wondering because there's just a list of the opposition, and I would just wanted to see what Corey likes to how he likes to respond to these statements. So, what about someone who says, "I don't want my tax dollars used to sponsor gambling in Texas"? What do you say to that type of opposition, Corey?
Well, it's very simple. We're not actually asking for state funds or the general fund to build anything. We're offering to put money into the general fund by allowing businesses to open that the state can tax the revenue from. So your state tax dollars are not going to be funding gaming or gambling, if that's how you're going to interpret poker, but the poker revenues are actually going to be adding to your state tax dollars.
Okay. And what about people who are worried about poker, and specifically online poker, taking advantage of underage players or underage players being able to gamble, and also just in general people losing all their money and losing their house and getting into trouble because of a gambling addiction, and they don't want that.
The first with the underage players and taking advantage of the players, the legislation that we are proposing and we're drafting at the moment requires that an online player in Texas actually have to go to a physical brick and mortar establishment. Some of it will be a poker room. Some of it will be some type of other affiliate if there's not a poker room in the area, to verify the player's age, identity, and Texas residency. So that you know that little 14-year-old Johnny's not riding his bike up there, passing off daddy's ID and opening an account. The account can't be verified and activated within the platform of their choice until there is actually a physical verification of it. New Jersey has this rule going on, and I believe California is running on the same model for what's being discussed at the moment.
Although interesting, it doesn't seem to be an issue for a lot of the iPhone and the games, because I've read stories of very young children getting a hold of their parents' iPhones and, spending thousands of dollars on these games.
Oh,
and then, of course, the parents complaining about it. So I'm just understanding here, why is it such a big deal? Technically, if underage people did play versus, playing all these money on these gaming sites, it doesn't seem that different to me, except you actually can win the money in poker and you can't playing these games.
Yeah, Ryan, something else that was interesting, there was a gentleman in Las Vegas who wanted to show how difficult it was for underage kids to log online and play poker. Mm-hmm. And these kids tried to use fake IDs. They tried every way possible to get an account with online poker, and they couldn't do it. And those same kids who were underage went into casinos in Las Vegas, played poker, cashed in, cashed out, played slots, got drinks. And I think they also,
they were all under 21.
Yeah. And
wow, that's an amazing story.
The video online. Andrew, what was the name of the gentleman in the video you can watch?
The gentleman's name is Tim James, and I can pull up the video here. I know he has a YouTube channel. I'll find it momentarily here.
Yeah, you can actually watch these kids go do these things, and they were unable to gamble illegally online, but they could gamble illegally brick and mortar.
Yeah, and it's just the TimJamesShow.com. And Tim James is a poker player, and he, I believe, in many ways, performed the social experiment out of his feelings about what he believes to be unjust approach to the legalization of poker nationally within the U.S. and internationally in many ways. And kind of another funny anecdote, it was several years ago, another prominently known poker player, Phil Galfond, he had a poker training website, which at the time was Blue Fire Poker, and they actually offered $1 million prize to any. It was a challenge issued to President Obama or any member of the U.S. Congress, and they were going to put up $1 million to go to a charity of their choice, and all they were asking was for Congress to put up a single dollar, and I don't believe that their challenge was accepted. But
what was
that
it
was
for?
If they could beat a professional poker player of their choice, right?
Right. That was Phil issuing the challenge to play, some number of hands against President Obama or a member of Congress.
Yeah, to show us a game of skill with the debate of is it a game of skill? And we all know that there's never enough money to be spent down in DC. So I'm really surprised they didn't send a team out for that one.
Yeah. I believe actually another gentleman. He's Norwegian, I think. And he took the initiative and issued a similar challenge in Norway because I believe in parts of Scandinavia, the tax laws make it very difficult for professionals to, maintain residency there and still make a lucrative living playing poker.
Yeah, during Dublin, we were at the EPT, and I did meet several U.S. players who did leave the U.S. and their whole entire families left the U.S. After the Black Friday. And it's, these are intelligent, smart people. They've got a great passion for the game. They've got a great passion for mathematics. They've got a great passion for logic. These people, they would probably succeed in anything they chose to do. And just in knowing that they're having to leave where they were born just so they can pursue their career and support their families, there's something kind of just doesn't feel right about that.
Yeah, it's definitely a little off-putting that, in the land of the free, home of the brave, people are forced out to pursue something that they are passionate about, that they love, that is inherently nonviolent and does enrich the qualities of problem solving and inability to experience intuition and apply those mathematics, not just to poker, but to day-to-day life.
I can generally say, I've learned so much from playing poker and just people's personalities across the felt that really have enriched the way I look at business, the way I look at even building a building, whether to buy a piece of land or to buy a piece of land. You become a lot more mindful and you really begin to look at things with a lot more patience and you get more of a detailed understanding of business and life.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And it's kind of funny. There's a cliche about poker that said it takes a minute to learn and a lifetime to master because the rules are relatively simple. But the approach that one takes to the game It's really a beautiful thing. There's no right or wrong in poker, just as there is in life. Everything's situational. Everything requires thought and decision.
Yeah, I have a question for Corey. What is the call of action? What can players in Texas, players internationally do to support and advocate what you're looking at doing?
Well, one of the things we have currently going on is we actually have a weekly call to action to where we are contacting every sitting legislator and every challenger that from primary that just happened a couple weeks ago for the general election, and we will have contacted each sitting legislature and each challenger for every Senate seat and every Texas representative seat at least 3 times before the end of the year.
Awesome. We'll get more with Corey Nation and how you can help make Texas legal for poker here after the break.
Hello, and welcome back to Burke and Lucky Chewy's Nourishment for the Spiritual Warrior show. This is our last segment. We've been speaking with Corey Nation about the legalization, possibly, of poker in Texas. Corey, what can people do? Just before the break, we were speaking a little bit about what you guys are doing and how people can help. So go ahead and finish what you were saying about what you guys are doing and then what people can do to get involved or help out.
Well, as I was mentioning, we are currently undergoing a call to action to contact every legislator in the state legislature and every state senator at least 3 times before the end of the 2016 year in ramp up to the 2017 legislative session. What they can do is go online to our website, Poker in Texas. That's POKERINTX.org, and sign up for our newsletter. We give out a weekly call to action that has approximately 10 to 12 of the sitting legislatures, since there's only about 150 of them in the state. And they can sign up for that. That will also keep them up to date with our newsletter, our blogs as they are posted. They can go online. They can follow us on Twitter and help by retweeting. That is poker_in, poker_TX. And help reach out and contact us. Also, we are preparing some promotional tournaments throughout the state in fiscal quarter 2, which would be April, May, and June. And hopefully we'll have something in quarter 4 with the election season. Just isn't going to be a very active from a fundraising point of view, but we will be contacting the legislators on a more active basis. We're just anybody that can spread the word, that can reach out, write an email, copy an email, forward a tweet, write a tweet, make a phone call. If you can do that once or twice a week to the legislators that we're targeting, you can make an enormous difference. The biggest thing we can do at this moment is be heard, and be heard with a unified message.
Yes,
So
that makes sense.
The unification of poker fans, poker players, people who love the game really does make an impact on the politicians who have the power to change the law. Is that right?
Absolutely. What used to require, 50 or 100 phone calls per day, now studies have been shown that realistically, if you'll send 50 or 100 tweets over the course of a week, it's equally, if not more powerful, because the generation that uses Twitter, that uses email, are less likely to reach out. So if they are reaching out, they're thinking it's a more powerful message than an old-fashioned letter or a phone call even.
That's great. And I guess, in many ways, opening a letter or taking various phone calls is more time consuming than just reading 140 characters on Twitter. It's a good way to get the point across quickly, concisely, and make sure that it will be heard by the party you're reaching.
Absolutely. And the details and nuances of what we're proposing in the legislation, we found we get a better response when we're face to face with the lawmakers, so that we can read what their reaction to each point is and answer their questions directly as to why we included this particular caveat or why we didn't include that, so that they can understand that this is a thoughtful piece of legislation that we're putting forward that actually does benefit more than just the immediate poker player, but the general citizen of Texas.
Yeah, it's great news. It's just a lovely thing to see that it's moving forward and it's gaining traction, and it's done with a positive intention. It's not it's nothing about it screams greed to me or envy or jealousy or anything negative. It's just about allowing people to pursue what it is that they love and having the individual freedom to be able to do that.
Yeah, Andrew, I really think you're right. It's, Texas is a beautiful place, and in Texas, people really love free speech. People love their individual rights. And the same way that I love that lady can have her church and do what she wants to do and have time, with her family and have her opinions. And the same thing as I love to see that poker players have their individual rights to play poker. I love to see that if someone wants to go to college, they have the individual rights to go to college. I love to see people can make choices on what food they eat. And I think people should be able to make the choice what they want to do with their recreational time.
That's very true. The idea of individual rights doesn't seem to interfere with anyone. I think it's the problem when you get other people trying to impose their beliefs on other people is where the problems are. If everyone just, dealt with their individual rights on their own, there's no really issues. The lady can have her church, people can play poker, but when some people try to, be higher and mightier and try to dictate to other people how and why they should live, that's when you run into issues. And unfortunately, there's still people out there trying to do that.
And I have to say a funny thing. I met, I had a film in the New York Film Festival that I was fortunate enough to do quite well in. And the guy who owned the New York Film Festival had a chat to me. And I said, why is it that you don't have a popular vote? Like all the people that attend the New York Film Festival, they don't all get to vote. Why is it a group of different judges? And he said, well, the popular vote is great, but nearly the largest popular vote in the world would be Chinese. And if only the Chinese people voted, we'd be watching movies all in Chinese.
And Chinese cinema is great, though.
Yeah, I really like Chinese cinema.
Yeah,
I've watched every episode of Condor Heroes maybe 3 times.
Oh, yeah. It's a good one.
And it made me laugh at the time because he was, kind of joking. And I was like, but a part of it made sense to me that, it's great we have the ability to collectivize with social media and, we can have 5,000 people connect and really push something they want as an individual group. But, we really have to also look at for that cutting edge creative technology and better living standards and inventiveness like a Nikola Tesla. We have to create the space with individual rights to let people pursue things that give them happiness, liberty, allows them to dream, be visionaries. And, things like poker, online poker, it just sets a little place for people who could be the next great business mind, could be the next great technology expert. It gets excitement started in the community.
And if anyone's interested in learning a little bit about Andrew's perception of poker, he wrote the book, of course, The Yoga of Poker. And it's Andrew, it was funny because one of the people that ordered your book, he actually called and left a message and he said, "Where can I get the Kung Fu of poker?" Because Andrew mentioned in the back of his book he was writing the second book, and I have to call him back and and tell him it's not finished yet.
Yeah, I'm working on it. It will eventually be manifest in planet Earth, and it's been great. It's been an incredible journey in my poker experience, in writing the book, and in writing, I guess, the sequel. And I really do truly love poker. I love the experiences it's offered me, the friendships I've made, the virtues it's taught me, and sharing that in a nutshell with everyone through these short stories, these short books, feels very rewarding because in many ways, to become as fortunate and successful as I've been, it was through these experiences. So I guess giving back to the community what I feel has allowed me to prosper also makes me feel good.
And Corey, we have a event coming up in Austin. Ryan is actually the organizer for it in Austin. We're going to have some amateur poker games going on. We're actually going to be hosting the World Fitness and Sports Championship in Austin again. We had a wonderful experience last year, enough to do it again. And we'd love to bring more of a spotlight on what you're doing and involve you guys in some of these great games that we've got coming up.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. I would love to be able to be there.
And that's going to be the weekend of August 27th and 28th. And it looks like we're going to do it at the AT&T Conference Center, which is right near UT. So check out austinuniverse.com. That's AUSTINUNIVERSE.com. And along with poker, we're also going to have fitness figure bodybuilding. It looks like we're also going to be working with the AAU to do some powerlifting and some Olympic lifting, possibly some strongman. And we actually have a lot of other events that we're planning on doing. So be sure to check out that website for more information on that. And also stay in touch with Corey here too for the poker legislation and for the poker tournament, the charity tournament that we'll be doing in August.
Fantastic.
So just once more, Corey, your website is poker, IN as in Nancy, TX.org. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So it looks like we're going to be wrapping it up here, guys. Corey, thank you very much for coming on the show today. It was a pleasure and a lot of fun to speak with you.
I enjoyed it tremendously. Thank you for inviting me. Hopefully I can come back sometime.
Joining us.
Absolutely. And if you're looking too to get pick up Andrew's book, come into Brave New Books right here off of Guadalupe near UT. The book is for sale here, the updated version. I have read the new extra chapter he put in at the end. Very cool. So pick up the new version and look for his new one to be coming out soon. You can also get that at burkesuperfoods.com. That's BURKESUPERFOODS.com. This is Ryan Metzel signing off here in Austin, Texas with Corey Nation. Till next week. Say bye, guys.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Blessings and namaste.